Hey, this is Brandon over at A Squared. Congrats on your new bike purchase. We're going to walk you through a few steps of unboxing, getting this thing built up so you can hit the road. We do want to let you know if at any point during this you feel in over your head, feel free to just take it into your local bike shop and they'd be happy to get you going. That being said, let's get started. All right, guys, first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get this box open and start getting some stuff out of it. First thing we're going to want to do here, this is going to be your box of parts. I know it looks big, but there's not a lot in there. It's very simple. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to pull out the bike. Go ahead and set this aside. Now, you're not going to want to use a knife to do this. You're going to either use scissors or wire snips because we don't want to gouge the painting if you end up slipping. And so your first step here is to just cut off all this packaging. Do it very carefully. Just be real careful when you're clipping them. You don't want to gouge the paint anywhere. There's only a few. So now we got our seat post. We're going to set that aside. And then we're just going to tear off all the styrofoam packaging. It should come off pretty easily. All right, now we're ready for step 2. All right, now that we've got all the packaging off the bike, we're gonna come over here and take a look at all the parts that came in that little box. So the first thing you're gonna see here is the torque wrench. We're gonna want you to use this if at all possible. This is gonna help you adjust the proper tension on each of the bolts. Then we have got our stem faceplate, our seat post shim, our seat post and saddle, and whatever pedals you choose, I will show you how to install those as well. All right, now we're ready to actually start the build. So the first thing we're going to want to do is put this front wheel on right here. And so we're going to take our included torque key here, and we're going to grab the H6 bit. That's the 6mm bit. Put it in there. And we are going to unthread the front through axle, which is located right here by the brake caliper. Pull that out. Now you're going to grab your front wheel. The disc is going to be on the right-hand side. You're going to lift up your frame, and we are going to slide the disc in between the calipers, and it should just fit right in there. Just set the weight of the bike down on it. Now we're going to take your through axle, and we are going to push it back in. Now, the great thing about through axles is they auto-aligned. They're going to align it to the same position that I had it when I built the bike. Now we're going to take our torque key and just snug this up. And right here, I'm going to show you how this torque key works. If you haven't seen one before, there will be some numbers on the torque key that will go from 0 to 10. And that's a measurement called Newton meters. And with the through axle, we want to do that all the way up to 10. So you'll see that little notch hit the 10 right there. And we're good. Okay, our next step here is going to be installing the seat post. And so what you're going to need for that is this little seat post wedge that came in the little box and your 4mm Allen key. And so what we want to do here is we want to drop this in completely level and then push it back. There's a little space in here where this is going to go. And so usually what I do is the little bolt is going to be facing this way. And you have a little hole down here where the wrench is going to go into. And so now this can fall into the frame. If it does, not a big deal. Just carefully turn your frame back upside down, let it fall out, and try it again. So I'm going to apply some pressure this way as I'm pushing it in. So now it's in there. And then once that's in there, I'm going to go ahead and drop in the seat post. And I'm just going to snug it up just a little bit. This isn't the final torque. I'm just getting it to kind of stay put. And don't worry about setting your seat height now, that's for later. Then we are going to grab our torque wrench with our also 4mm Allen key. And we're going to come in here and we're going to tighten it all the way to 6. And so when that notch touches the number 6, that's where you're going to want to stop. And we should be good. All right, so now the next step here is going to be installing your cockpit. And so the first thing we're going to need is your stem faceplate, and then these 2 stem shims, and then your stem hardware along with the 4mm Allen key. And so firstly, we're going to reorient the handlebars. Now don't worry about straightening them and getting them completely level yet. We're just getting them in the bike and snugged up. So you'll see these cables are internally routed through the stem. Go ahead and just kind of push those back in there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is install the stem shims. And so you're going to notice there's these two little notches on these stems. Those are going to go on the bottom. So I'm going to install the first one. It'll kind of click in place. And then the second one. Kind of click in place. And now we're going to take the face plate and just one bolt. I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. And just get that first bolt started. Just get a few threads in there so it kind of stays put. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get all three of the other ones in there, and we're going to come back and snug it up and torque it and center the bar. All right, so now we got the bars on the bike. We're going to go ahead and reorient them and make sure everything on the stem is torqued. And so ideally you would like to have this completely level with the ground if possible, or if you like that position, maybe even slightly tilted up. I like mine level to the ground. Then we're going to come in here with our 4mm torque. And we want to make sure before we start torquing everything for good is that you have an even gap on the bottom and the top. And so you don't want the top touching right here and then a big wide gap at the bottom. So just make sure that these are about even. Then we're going to go in with the 4mm Allen, and we're going to go to 5 Newton-meters. So you're just going to land right between the 4 and the 6. And then we're going to move down diagonally. Do it again, then up, do it again, and down here, do it again. And then it's always good to just go back over that one more time and just double check each bolt and make sure it's still at 5. All right, now last part of setting up your cockpit is going to be tightening up your side stem bolts. These ones are very important. These will come from our factory pre-tightened, but they're always good just to double check these just to make sure. So these are also 5 Newton-meters. So you're just going to push this to the 5 and come back on the other end here and push it to the 5. And those are something that's good to check every once in a while just to make sure that those haven't come loose. All right, so the last step now is going to be installing your pedals. So there's a lot of different pedal manufacturers out there, but the premise for installing all of them is going to be generally the same. Now, today we're going to use some Shimano SPDSLs, which is one of the more popular choices for clipless pedals. The only difference between the brands is really going to be the tool that you end up using to install them. And so for Shimano, it's going to use an 8mm Allen key. For look, it's usually going to be a 6mm Allen key. And then for some of the more generic, just plastic flat pedals, we'll use a pedal wrench. And so today we're going to go ahead and do the Shimanos. So we have some pedal washers here that are included with your bike. You want to slip that over the spindle. And the other thing to keep in mind too is usually with clipless pedals, you don't have to really worry about putting them on wrong because, you know, it's going to be oriented, you know, arrow front. However, the flat pedals, you want to make sure that you're putting the right pedal on the right crank arm and the left pedal on the left crank arm. And so on the inside of the spindle, on most pedals, there will be an R and an L, so you know that you're putting them on the right side. Now what we're going to go ahead and do here is take our 8mm Allen key, make sure that pedal washer's on there. Go ahead and just line it up with the threading. Then stick the 8mm on there and just start turning. And then once we get this flush with the crank, now what we're going to do is orient it this way so we can get a little bit of leverage. And then generally what I do is I pull the wheel backwards as I tighten it down, and that'll kind of give you a nice firm seating of that pedal. All right, now that we got the bike all assembled, there's a few important things we just want to go over real quick. Each ride that you do before you start, you want to just do a quick safety check. Grab your brakes, make sure they're grabbing both wheels nice and snug. Hold on to your bars, pull up and down, put some weight on it, make sure nothing's moving. Do the same for your seat post. Make sure you put air in your tires each ride. That's going to be the best way to prevent flats. And then anytime you need to make an adjustment to your fit, make sure you're using that torque wrench. It's very important that you get the proper torque on there, not only to prevent damage to your frame, but for your own safety as well. We don't want something slipping while you're out on a ride. Other than that, your bike is going to come fully tuned. The gears should work completely fine. However, all the cabling in here is brand new since it's a brand new out of the box bike. So expect within about 100 miles or 30 days, that cable is going to stretch out a little bit and your shifting might get a little clicky, brakes might feel a little bit loose. Take it into any bike shop in the country and they'll know what to do. Just tell them it's a brand new bike and it's time for a cable tightening. Alrighty guys, thanks again for joining us. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to contact us at a2bikes.com. And also just to reiterate again, if you ever have any questions or you feel like you're in over your head, just stop by our local bike shop and they'd be more than willing to help you out with any of this. All right, happy riding.